Shall we begin? The answer is coming. I can do this all day.
Tear down this wall.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Unscripted podcast, powered by Jägermeister. As we delve deep into the action-packed world of stunts, with our today's guest, who has defied gravity, pushed through limits, and taken risks to bring some of the fan-favorite jaw-dropping action sequences to life. With more than 170 stunts in fan-favorite TV series, blockbuster movies, he is Marvel's and DC's go-to guy, Chris Brewster, and he is taking the world of action cinematography by storm. He is the guy beneath the mask of Daredevil and Captain America, and who knows, he's maybe on his way to make a mutagen formula in his basement and become a Ninja Turtle. Chris, thanks for joining us, and are you ready to go genuine, uncensored, and unscripted with us today?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. You did martial arts, you won tournaments, recorded commercials, participated in America's Got Talent, and did all kind of action performances, but it was all leading to movie sets, right? And was being the stuntman your goal at the beginning of the road, or at least fail safe if you didn't become a Ninja Turtle or Jackie Chan?
To be honest, I mean, I started my whole pursuit through martial arts and everything like that. When I was 4. So at the time, I had no idea what a stuntman is. I knew that I wanted to be one of the characters on TV. I wanted to be one of the Ninja Turtles. I wanted to be Jean-Claude Van Damme. I wanted to be somebody who was on TV or in the movie theater doing fights and looking really, really cool. So I always knew that was my dream and my passion. I just didn't know the path to get there. I followed the martial arts because every movement of the martial arts made me feel like one of these characters. I learned how to kick and punch, and everything I did, I felt strong and cool. And at the same time, while it was teaching me techniques that looked really good, it was also building me as a person. So I can't speak highly enough about martial arts as a whole. They're incredible for training your body, training your mind, and just turning you into a better person. Once I started performing worldwide, I started to understand the world of entertainment a lot more, and I realized that there was actually a world where I could take my martial arts and work them into choreography and, in essence, be a superhero. And so I started meeting the right people. I had some incredible stunt coordinators that kind of took me under their wing, and they were big brothers to me. They taught me everything. They taught me the ropes. They taught me how to take my martial arts and do them on camera, because there's a very strong transition that has to take place. And they guided me along the path and opened the doors for me, and here I am.
Yeah, hearing you speak about stunt coordinators, it seems like stunt community is tight one, but how hard was it to hustle your way to the top of the industry by yourself, basically?
Well, I was never part of a stunt team, but I definitely can't say that I was by myself. I had mentors. As far back as Bob Brown took me under his wing, and Bob Brown is just an absolute stunt legend. I mean, he's like the god of the high falls and everything like that. He taught me so much about stunts as a whole. And I started training at 8711, where Chad Stahelski and David Leitch come from. And I mean, they taught me a whole new world of basically taking. Yeah, well, and I mean, at the time when I first started training at 8711, David and Chad had both gone on from being top performers in the stunt industry and doubling everyone from Brad Pitt to Keanu to, everybody, to coordinating all of the action. And they were in the stage of second unit directing, like directing the action, but they hadn't broken into directing their own films just yet. And they showed me the progression of how you can take your skills, use your skills to choreograph movement, but then take your knowledge and choreograph not only the movement of the people in front of the camera, but what the camera does itself. So you can actually use the camera to make somebody look bigger and stronger, to make somebody look faster. There's all of these special skills and special techniques that you can use with a camera to enhance all the choreography that you're putting together in front of the camera. So I learned so much training, there at 8711, and then just, having both the right mentors and the right people around me. Some of my best friends are also, very, very high level stunt performers, and they've always pushed me along, and we've all kind of really helped each other rise up through the ranks. And I feel very blessed. I've always had really good people around me. So even though I wasn't part of a specific stunt team, I had a community, and the community was everything.
Yeah, I mean, do you hope to go to the footsteps of those guys that you mentioned? Because Chad, very successful with John Wick. David as well. I think David, did he direct the Bullet Train? I'm not sure.
He did. He did. He directed Bullet Train, Hobbs and Shaw, Deadpool 2. I mean, the two of them are absolutely crushing the directing game. And I mean, they direct, they produce, they have gone on to literally becoming the action movie gods.
Yeah. I heard Chad, I think, mention on Joe Rogan's podcast that he is interested in doing adaptation of Ghost of Tsushima, the video game. That would be something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, there's nobody who could do a film version of that and do it more justice than Chad. I mean, he's the guy who, if you had to take action entertainment and create an actual university that taught that, he would be the godfather of it. He would be the master instructor, because he has spent more time breaking down every fight scene and every piece of action on camera than anybody. And because of that, he can create it better than almost anybody.
Yeah, and talking about the greats, I heard your story about meeting J.J. Perry, which would prove to be your trial by fire, and that's the meeting that basically started your career as a professional stuntman, leading to projects like Avatar and similar. And looking back to it now, do you think that meeting was your day D of your career and maybe life?
The meeting J.J. Perry was absolutely the first massive stepping stone in my career. He was the person who took me out of the sport karate competition and live performance world and really brought me into being a stuntman. And he asked me the number one question that I think everybody wonders when it comes to somebody who has a lot of skills that wants to break into the stunt world. And it's, do you want to be a performer? Meaning, do you want to take whatever your background is, your martial arts, your gymnastics, your acrobatics and stuff? Do you want to just do that in front of the camera and look really cool? Or do you want to be a stuntman and actually take a hit and, fall down stairs and do all of the stuff that isn't the most pleasant? And, I mean, luckily I had the smartest and dumbest response I ever could have. And I told J.J. Perry's that I absolutely wanted to take a hit, and I could prove it by volunteering to take his back kick. Anybody who doesn't know who J.J. Perry is, he is an Olympic level Taekwondo master who has gone on to stunt coordinating, directing. He just directed Night Shift with Jamie Foxx, and he's getting ready to do the Dave Bautista movie. I mean, he's another stunt legend who is absolutely crushing it and rising up as a director and producer and everything else. He is also one of the scariest human beings on the planet. He is the nicest and most brotherly person you could meet, but he is strong. He carries himself like he is ready to go to war at any point in time. And volunteering to take his back kick, he absolutely would have broken every bone in my body with one single move. But but he ran me through the choreography and faked a back kick and never threw it. And you realized that I was going to stand there and ready to take the hit. So he's like, I like this guy. And the next day he made a couple of phone calls, and I was literally working 24 hours after volunteering to take his kick. So it definitely jump started my career.
Yeah, you should thank him for taking so many hits through your career. Yeah.
I absolutely should.
Talking about such things as potentially taking injuries and stuff like that, I was watching on YouTube some of the videos when you were preparing on Winter Soldier to do some scenes, the training you've done. I mean, did ever on the set I know some famous injuries that happened on set, like Tom Cruise jumping from the building, but that's obviously a little more extreme. Did you ever had a moment where you suffered some serious injury, or people that worked with you suffered some injury, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, part of the stunt world is, it's all calculated risk. The stunt coordinators and the stunt team put a lot of effort into making everything as safe as it possibly can, but there's always some risk involved. And I feel very lucky that in my 20-something year career, I've only had a handful of injuries, but I mean, I've torn my bicep, I tore my Achilles, I broke my leg. I've had
nothing serious, right?
A collection. I mean, the funny thing is, the training that you do for stunts is like training to be a professional athlete. You are absolutely conditioning your body. So if I hadn't been training at the level that I was training, any one of them could have been a career ender. But I mean, even torn Achilles, torn bicep, I never had to take more than a month off of work. Wow. I was able to kind of heal up fast and get back into it. Ironically, I tore my Achilles 2 months before we started Daredevil season 2. And, obviously Daredevil is a very acrobatic superhero. And I knew that I needed to bring my A game. So, I mean, I did everything I possibly could to rehab. 2 months to the day that I had surgery, I started the season. And my first day on set, I had to do a front flip off of an I-beam that was about 16 feet in the air.
Wow.
And I remember standing on top of the I-beam, and I was just thinking, well, this is one way to know if my Achilles is healed up enough to do the season or not. I'm like, either the season will go one day, or I will know right now that I can do the entire season. And I threw the flip and I landed, and there was a second of hesitation where I'm like, I think I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. And then we just went bonkers for the next 8 months, flipping and fighting and doing all the things that Daredevil does.
Well, now speaking about Daredevil and the Winter Soldier movie, and maybe two of the most iconic fights are in those movies. Elevator fight in the superhero movies are elevator fight in Winter Soldier and hallway scene in Daredevil season 1. So is this which one was more tougher for you? Was it hallway scene like the Wanner, or maybe elevator scene, which is such cheek by Joel situation?
Well, the difference between feature films and television is night and day. It's comparing apples and oranges. On a feature film, you've got months and months to prepare. So the challenge is you design something, and then you build it, and then you build it some more, and then you build it some more, and you've rehearsed the action so many times, it almost starts to become monotonous and lose its magic. So you have to either tweak it or change it or find a way to bring that magic back in. And the elements of challenge are how they're going to shoot it and how you can play everything for each camera and everything like that. Whereas with television, there's no prep. We were very, very lucky and blessed on Daredevil to have an entire crew, and both the studios and the producers wanted the action to be really good. So they went out of their way to give us as much time as they could to prep. But even with all of their support, the hallway fight, we had 3 days. We were given the challenge that we were going to not only design this big epic fight scene, but that we were going to shoot it in one single take. We were given that challenge Sunday night. So we had Monday and Tuesday to prepare the fight, and we shot it on Wednesday. I mean, that's how fast the turnaround was. So again, it's just a very different dynamic. The thing about the Daredevil hallway fight scene, we were using the references of like Old Boy, or Tony Jaa has this one epic stairwell fight sequence. And those were both sequences that had a very long time to prepare and rehearse and just get everything so dialed in that it became a dance, and everybody knew their place, and it was just beautiful. We thought the idea of doing something at that level 3 days later was absolutely impossible. So it was like the impossible challenge, and that was really, really exciting. So I think that fight sequence will always have a very special spot in my heart, because, you know, we went on Sunday, we're like, this is not doable. I don't know how we're going to get through this. And then on Wednesday, we did it. And I mean, the second we finished it, we knew we did something special.
Oh yeah, you probably made one of the most iconic Netflix moments in history.
Yes. Whenever somebody mentions hallway fight, they either think about Old Boy or that fight in Daredevil. But it's crazy that you mentioned that you filmed it in 3 days, because I also we spoke on this podcast with Nicholas Powell, who is also a stunt coordinator. He worked on Jason Bourne, and he was speaking to me like that he wrote the scenes for 2-3 weeks for Jason Bourne and had to film it for 5-6 days, the apartment fight in Jason Bourne 1. So it's amazing that you've been able to do that in 3 days. That's really something.
Yeah, I mean, you almost learn a whole new workflow when you're working on TV. Whereas, you know, feature film, you kind of get into the habit of, all right, I'm going to break down the script 3 months, or at least a few months before we're going to camera. And you usually have enough time to rehearse and previs every piece of action before the cameras even start rolling. On a television show, it's like you are in the middle of filming episode 1 while you're prepping episode 2. So there, you know, you're literally just trying to find a couple hours throughout the day where you're like, okay, we're going to do action in the first and second scene today, but then after lunch we'll have a couple of hours. So let's choreograph something for episode 2 after lunch. And you're just trying to, you know, work your time management. And it definitely forces you to become extremely creative and to make your creative process very fast and fine-tuned, because you're just like, well, I've got 3 hours. I need to make something as cool as I possibly can in 3 hours. Here we go. And it's definitely motivating.
Yeah, and in movies, like in Marvel movies especially, it goes through so much levels of control. Like you send it to another, to one guy, he sends it to another, right? And another, and it gets rewritten, and it's not the original idea you had when you started.
And it's a bigger, like, obviously it's a bigger production, so a lot more depends on it and things like that, probably.
I think to me, the beauty of the Daredevil series in the beginning, when it was a Netflix Marvel project, the beauty was there were very few people who would chime in. Like they hired a stunt team that they trusted, and we would create the action, and almost every time they would watch it and go, that is exactly what we want. The actors would step in and they'd give kind of like character beats, because I always feel like the choreography is like the skeleton of a fight, and the actors and the director kind of build the body around the skeleton. They kind of tell the story with each move. There's a huge difference between somebody who doesn't want to fight and is fighting kind of defensively, and they could be throwing a 1-2, a jab cross, but they're doing it like defensively, and they're trying to stay away from the altercation, as opposed to a bully who's going to be menacing, just charging forward. And your posture, how you present yourself, your demeanor. There's so many different levels that you can add on top of the choreography. But on the Daredevil series, very few people actually would tweak what we did. Whereas any Marvel feature film, I mean, there's 1 million people that have opinions. And it's really funny because at the end of the day, you've got a lot of people who are sitting in an office that have never thrown a punch or kick in their life and have absolutely no idea about fighting or even how fighting looks on camera, that all feel like they have to say something. So you'll choreograph a really cool fight and then you'll just get something where somebody's like, yeah, I think when they throw the punch, he should catch it with his hand like this. And you're just like, so like everything gets so watered down, and the final fight scene on most Marvel films is like an amalgamation of 500 different ideas. It's not one person's vision or a vision of very few people put together. It's just like a whole scatter of ideas.
Oh yeah, it's like Peter Jackson teaching Lee Pace how he should die in Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, and the guy was in the Second World War.
Yeah.
So he knows a thing or two about dying. But and you spoke about those characters and actors giving them substance, and it's like comparing Captain America and Daredevil. Captain America is superhuman. He's indestructible, and he's just gonna shake it off and continue his mission. And with Daredevil, he can get bruised, he can get kicked, and so which one did you were you more comfortable with doing, Daredevil or Captain America in that way?
Well, Daredevil has a much deeper mindset when it comes to choreography. Like you said, Captain America is almost invincible. He's 10% stronger than the strongest human on the planet. He's 10% faster. He's 10% more agile. So unless he's fighting another supercharged character, when he's fighting Bucky, when he's fighting, somebody else who has superpowers, that's the only thing that can give him a challenge. It's almost like the idea of, being an adult in a bouncy house and a bunch of children in the bouncy house are attacking you. You're just like, get out of here. It should be effortless for him. So the challenge with Captain America is, how do you make it exciting when, he's as strong as the Hulk? If somebody comes charging in, he can hit them one time and they are gone. The directors of Winter Soldier, they wanted action and the energy to feel like Raid Redemption. Raid Redemption, the style was much more similar to Daredevil because the characters were just real life human beings. They had no superpowers. If they got cut, they bled. If they got hit, they felt it. So they had to fight defensively, and they couldn't knock every single person out with one single move. I mean, there were times what makes Raid Redemption magical is, like, you see the guy grab somebody's head and smash it into a wall like 6 or 7 times. I mean, it's that aggression and that visceral nature that made it so good. So the directors wanted that kind of energy with a character who can flick somebody and they go flying. It wasn't the easiest dynamic to parlay into that character. So I think it's a much easier and more fun design to create movement for somebody like Daredevil, because you have to really get in their headspace, and you're thinking, okay, well, this guy's going to swing at him. How is he going to avoid that? How's he going to do this? Then you have the whole layer of he's actually blind. And what I love about Daredevil's movement is Charlie Cox's mentality on Daredevil's movement. The idea is, yes, the character is blind. And when we first started designing the action, I was choreographing and practicing all of the fights with my head like looking elsewhere. So I was genuinely trying to fight blind. And Charlie pulled me aside and was like, okay, well, here's the idea. Matt Murdock is blind. He doesn't want anybody to know that Daredevil is Matt Murdock. So he doesn't want anybody to know that Daredevil is blind. So he's like, even though I can't see my opponents, I'm going to look them right in the face. I want to point my nose directly at their nose because that way they think I'm staring them down. So yeah, it was just so layered. There were so many deeper qualities, and I mean, I really enjoy the fact that Charlie like pulled me aside and like really gave me acting lessons on top of my physical acting to really kind of get me in his headspace, and it made it so easy to translate his character into my movements.
Yeah, I mean, the best acting performances are by the guys who understand their character, and they probably understand it better than any of us in the audience could ever. So it's obvious. That's why he's the master Daredevil.
Yeah. He is absolutely perfect as Daredevil because he understands everything, every level of that character. He actually spent a lot of time working with blind people to see how they get through their day and their little tricks and what their thought process is, because if you have sight, you might react to something one way, but without that sight, you would have a very different approach to how you would handle a situation.
There are no rules but one. Drink Jägermeister at minus 18 degrees Celsius.
So Charlie Cox, he speaks about you in the highest regard, and about your work in Daredevil, and you are doing that as well, as we are seeing now. And we could feel it watching that the whole crew became kind of like family, and you all did your parts to save Daredevil. You, Vincent, Charlie, everybody in the campaign, and we are getting born again by Disney. But unfortunately, you won't be joining them, right, in the born again. And is this something that can change, especially because you are, it seems, to me at least, go-to guy for Marvel, or we should write again?
Well, it's probably too late to change it now. Marvel has told every person working on that show that they don't want Born Again to look anything like the Netflix Daredevil series.
You spoiled it now.
I mean, trust me, I like not only did I work on the show, I was one of the biggest fans of the show. I think that the Marvel Netflix Daredevil was a masterpiece. I think that the casting was perfect. I think that every showrunner, every person that worked on the show was genius. Like, it was an incredible experience. And I mean, in my opinion, and what most people agree on, it was Marvel's best streaming show ever.
Yeah.
I mean,
Greatest
there's nothing
superhero as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Charlie and Vincent absolutely crushed it as their characters. I think that every person that worked on the show like absolutely nailed it. I think that now that the MCU has taken over the character, I think they are really hurting it. They if you watch She-Hulk, they turned Daredevil into a cartoon. Yeah. It's all animated and it looks bad. I mean, I love CG to enhance real movement, but if you don't have any real movement, it just becomes a cartoon. It's just CG. There's no weight to it. And what always made the action on Daredevil so good is it was visceral. You felt what Charlie was feeling, I mean, between his performance and just being in there in the action. And anything that you saw, we really did. If we had to put somebody on a wire, if we needed something to enhance the movement, we would. But it wasn't a cartoon. It was live action, and you will never match the energy that live action has. So I think that, She-Hulk was a massive step down as far as the movement goes and the action. Echo isn't out yet, but I've heard it is just as bad. And
I thought Echo
And,
was canceled actually.
yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I always get like the word of mouth. I heard they were going to Batgirl it because they weren't happy with it. And now they're doing reshoots and they're planning on airing it. But I think that could also have something to do with the fact that there's a strike and there's not a lot of content right now. So like, well, we have it made already. So
Oh yeah.
I don't know. But ultimately, Born Again, I had no doubt that they were going to reach out to me. Charlie specifically requests me on everything, and I mean, he always goes out of his way and fights for me to be there. And he asked them over and over to bring me in, and I never even got a phone call. Ironically, nobody that worked on seasons 1, 2, or 3 went back. They really truly don't want it to be anything like the Marvel Netflix Daredevil. So nobody who worked on the original series, other than the cast that they're bringing back, is coming back. And I mean, there were just some truly wonderful people that worked on that show, and I think they really added to the magic of that show. And I think Marvel's making a big mistake, but what you gonna do?
Complete shithousery. Wow.
Yeah, 100%.
I wanted to ask you about She-Hulk, if you watched it and how they treated the character. What do you think? And especially when you said the movements, especially in the scene when she's breaking the roof and the parkour scene where he's jumping, it's like no. And then we got those. No, go on.
Yeah, no, I'm very opinionated when it comes to action, obviously. And I think that, we're in this new era where everything has advanced so much in cinematography. I mean, the VFX that they're using are out of this world. The problem is when you make the wrong choices to when you go VFX and when you go live action, if there isn't a true blend of the two, VFX will always look like cartoons and live action always looks flat without, you want the two to be married. She-Hulk, there was no marriage. She-Hulk, it was all cartoons. And there's only so much you could do about making, a 10-foot tall green woman fight. Like you can't really find one down the street and use them to do the action. So it's understandable that they had to use a lot of CG for that, but they didn't need to with Daredevil. They and I also feel like because they were so reliant upon the CG, they just didn't put the effort into making the choreography Daredevil choreography. Like Daredevil doesn't hold himself like a ballerina, like the chin up, chest out, the matador look. That's Captain America, because he doesn't need to defend himself. So he walks tall and proud, and he knows that he is an icon. Like he wants, if anybody ever sees him at any moment, he needs to stand there proud and strong, because he is inspiring the nation. He's inspiring the world. That is his job. So Captain America stands tall and proud. Daredevil does not want to get hit. He doesn't want to get hurt. He is rounded. He fights the way his father did when his father boxed. He's very, very protected, and the style should look completely different. So when you see Daredevil come in, chin up, chest out, walking like this, you're like, it's not the same character. It just doesn't do it.
One thing I will not forgive about this Daredevil in She-Hulk is when we got a glimpse of new hallway scene, when they are fighting with these frog goons, and she just jumps from the floor on them, and I was really expecting to see something similar from Netflix, but no, ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, I think the days of true, proper, good Daredevil action have passed.
Stop killing me, man.
They do it. Oh, well, hey man, trust me. If anybody's heartbroken about it, it's me. I mean, that character was a big part of me, You know, I put 5 years of my life into, you know, the character. Obviously, I mean, like Charlie, of course, put much more than I did, but you know, when you're creating the action, when you're designing the choreography, and you know, when you're playing the character physically, obviously, you know, I wasn't acting the part, but like, you know, anytime you're doubling a character, you are doing the same thing. You're putting yourself in that character's mindset and shoes, and you are, you know, in essence, becoming the character. You're just not speaking as the character. You're moving the way the character would move. You're feeling what they would feel, and it still takes a lot of acting, but it's physical acting. It's not the verbal acting. Um, and yeah, I mean, I definitely put a lot into that character. So I feel like, you know, watching what they're doing with it is painful.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about it, you're speaking about that marrying that mental aspect with the physical, and I remember from Daredevil, one of the also great fight scenes is when he fights the Chinese triad guy in the season 1. It's phenomenal because you almost feel like he could die here, even he's a main character and all the logic goes against it. Like, yeah, and he can die here. Like, there's a real injuries. And tell me, does that maybe when you work on high superhero action, for example, like on Black Adam, you work, right? Is that part missing, sort of like almost human-like? There's danger here.
Yeah, I think the audience wants to relate to a character. And if a character is too invulnerable, you can't relate to that. I mean, humans have weaknesses. We aren't perfect. We have our flaws. We, both emotionally, physically, there's things that we know we are guilty of. So you almost look for that in your idols, in your heroes. I think that if a character is too perfect, the audience might enjoy watching that character, but not feel the character. And, I think they ultimately, like, the characters that the audience connect with are always the characters that have flaws. I mean, I like the fact that, Daredevil, he's not the perfect good guy. He walks the line, I mean, there's definitely times where somebody is a threat and Daredevil would take care of the threat. But then once that person was no longer a threat, he continued to beat them down, like there's times where you're like, ooh, he's still going. Like it shows how real he is, I mean, it shows that he's not just, I'm going to do what's right because that's the right thing to do. I mean, when he, like, I mean, they would have flashbacks, and in the flashbacks, he would, follow an abusive person back after, they were walking away from the bar. And he didn't want that abusive person to go home to his wife or his children and abuse them. So he wanted to teach the guy a lesson. But then he unleashed on him. He went way further than he had to because he was kind of letting out a lot of his own inner demons and stuff. I think that finding the flaws in the character and helping the character grow through their flaws is something that people can really, really relate to. And I think that's, I mean, part of the reason people love Daredevil. They love Matt Murdock. They also love Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, because it's not white and black. It's not, what we have always learned. There's good and there's bad and there's nothing in between. It's like our hero is a good guy who sometimes does bad things, and our main villain is kind of a bad guy because he does bad things, but like you still love him. He has real characteristics. And even though Kingpin is, the head of the local mafia and stuff, he's super loving to Vanessa. He just wants to protect her. It's like even when he's doing something horrible, you almost understand why he's doing it. So it's just, there's so much more realness and, tangible feelings in there, as opposed to just like, good guy shows up to save the day and the bad guy's over here just doing crime because that's all bad guys do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also the part of the audience, and this is not just to a superhero movies related. I think when the character comes from a position of from a weaker spot, it's then we look for him to do the right thing. But if he also comes always from the position of power, let's say it's like Superman, it's easy to be a good guy then, right? And here it's very tough to go high ground.
Absolutely. It's hard to be perfect. It's there's just not a whole lot more to draw from. And ultimately, as a character arc, if you start off all the way at the top, there's nowhere for you to go. There's no progression, and like, you want to root for the hero. Everybody who grew up in 80s 90s loved Rocky.
Yes.
And in the beginning, like, he lost every fight. He lost the 11 rounds out of the 12 rounds every single time. He was always on the mat, and you just wanted him to get up. You just, it wasn't it like when if he came in and he just won every fight, it would get boring after 5 minutes. But he literally would take so much punishment that you were just like, you were in your seats feeling his pain. You just, it made you love him, and all you wanted was to see him win. And watching that, go, the roller coaster finally go to the top, where you're like, wow, he just won the fight. You are cheering, you're standing up in your seats, you're excited, and that's what you want.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think also the genius from Stallone in that particular case is when he wrote Rocky. Rocky was also coming from a place where he wasn't really a good guy. In the neighborhood, they called him bum. He was giving out cash, working with the local mob. And also when he goes to a first workout, he hates it. Like, he wakes up at 4 a.m. He doesn't jump from happiness. Let's go change life. It's also added that layer of realness to him,
Absolutely. Because everybody in the audience is like, I don't want to wake up at 4. I wouldn't do that.
No, but
Yeah. But it's cool because when you see the hero thinking the way you would think, it gives you the hope that whatever the hero went through, you can do. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we're making movies. We are creating a fantasy, and we have the power to make people watch it and either leave happy and charged up and uplifted, or just leave like, oh, that was cool, whatever. And I think that if you give the audience a character and a story that they can relate to their own life, and it finishes on a high note, if you give Rocky a happy ending, if you have the hero go through hardships and then push themselves till they finally succeed, everybody walks out of that theater going, you know what, whatever hardships I have in my life, I am going to push myself through, and I'm going to succeed too. You are inspiring the world. I think, like you said, I think there was pure genius behind every move that Stallone made with that film.
Oh yeah, highly underrated. On the other hand, about Daredevil, among countless classics and raw, intense, artistically brutal fight scenes, including scenes in Hallway in season 1, in season 3, fight with Nobu, which is my personal favorite, and fights with Kingpin. Which one is your favorite, and which one was the toughest to be made? Because I heard, if that's right, in the scene when you are falling through, when Daredevil is falling through a window into the water, you took countless takes of that scene.
Oh God. I was literally drowning for 8 hours that day. Um, yeah, so it's really funny. I mean, the way they shot that sequence, we dove through a window and shot it both interior and exterior, looking at the window, but the window wasn't anywhere near water. So we got a candy glass window, and I jumped through the glass, and that was that. Then we went to a pool, and when you're doing something where you're hitting the water, there's always the option that you shoot on location somewhere. And when you're shooting on location, the water is usually not clean. You don't know what you're going to get into and stuff. If they tell you, hey, we're going to shoot it in the pool, you're like, yes, perfect. It's much better situation. So we went to a pool, and I thought it was going to be a super easy day. All I had to do all day was this one scene, one shot where I hit the water and just sink towards the camera. Well, we had the wrong size tarp. We had a big black tarp, so because we didn't want to look at the ceiling. So when they put the camera on the bottom, they, really couldn't position it right to not see the edges. So they were like, hey, when you hit the water, you have to hit the water in one place, and you have to go straight down, and you can't let the current carry you one way or the other.
Okay.
So
How are you
there's,
gonna
there's
manage
just
that?
no way. Yeah, well, there's no way that you can control what the current does, or what the water will do to you as you're going down. So we just had to shoot it all day long to get that one perfect shot of me just drifting straight down with no sway whatsoever. And the water was nice and warm, the air was nice and warm, but still after 5 or 6 hours of doing it, I was getting out of the water like this every time. I was just like shaking. They're like, "Are you good?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And I mean, the water was literally 80 degrees and the air was 80 degrees. Like, it could not have been a more comfortable situation. But just going into and out of the water all day long, it does weird things to your body
Oh
heat.
yeah. Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
sorry, I never actually answered your question. So to answer your question, no, the Nobu fight was definitely not my favorite because of that. Uh, my my favorite fight would either be the hallway sequence from season one, um, or in season three when we got to do the prison fight. Basically, season one, we did a proper one take where, we had no cuts and we went all the way through it. Season two, we did a oneer, but it was a fake oneer. We basically made it look like a oneer, but we had very clever camera wipes where we could cut, and, it wasn't one traditional oneer. So going into season three, I just begged them that they give us a chance to do a proper oneer that can beat the season one oneer, and the day that they said, okay, this is the sequence, this is the one that we want you guys to make a oneer out of, and we're going from this room to this room to this to this to this, and it's as Matt Murdock, not as Daredevil, so it's a lot harder to disguise the transition between Charlie and myself. It was just, another really, really good challenge, and to me, the excitement that you feel with a challenge makes it that much more rewarding when you actually succeed. And that was just another one where we're like, we've got 3 days to put together an almost impossible sequence. And then we did it. So I think those two will always be absolute magic to me. They were just absolute, just great experiences, like top to bottom.
And tell me about this, because when I was on the set when we were filming some movie here in Montenegro, and I was an extra on the movie, and we did one scene, which is approximately 10 seconds in the movie, and we did that scene for the whole day, and everybody was pissed, just repeating scene where we are just walking. And what about stunts? Because you have sometimes to reportedly make same moves, to fall into same position, exact same position and stuff like that. And especially if the director wants to make takes which are perfect, like James Cameron, for example. And how tough is to make same moves again and again?
Does it get frustrating almost?
Well, yes, it can. I think a lot of it depends on the reason for the multiple takes. At the end of the day, you could shoot an insert shot 1 million times. It doesn't matter. Acting shots, you can shoot 1 million times. The actors might get annoyed that they're having to do it and working, but ultimately nobody's in danger except for stunt people. So when a director decides I'm going to continue to endanger somebody, that's where we start to get frustrated. However, there's always the time, and in like a James Cameron situation, there's some directors who are going for the perfect shot. And if it's a director that you believe in as a performer, you want to give them what they're looking for. And at the end of the day, like, all stuntmen, you have to enjoy what you're doing, because if you don't, this is definitely not the right career for you. And we want the final product to be as fantastic as it possibly can be. So we want for that perfect shot. So if you believe that the director is amazing and you think that their vision is, something worth, a couple extra hits, or a couple extra bruises, you can really get behind it, and you want to give them what they're looking for. It really only gets frustrating when there's some people behind the camera that just don't know what they're looking for. And a lot of times you get a director who will just go, okay, good, back to one, and action. Good, let's do it again. And they're not like giving you notes. They're not, there's nothing that they want to do differently. They just watch it and they're like, it's cool. Maybe the next one will be better. They're not sharing their thoughts. They're not. So that's when it gets frustrating, because you're like, okay, I think I'm just doing multiple takes because he doesn't know what he's looking for, as opposed to, this is exactly what I want. That last take wasn't exactly what I want. I want the body a little bit higher. I want this position a little bit more. I want, I get very excited when I'm talking to a director and he has a vision. When he tells me, hey, I want this guy flying back in the air, and I want to see kind of like this kind of pose, his head like this. And, they'll have like a reference of like, oh, you see the way Brad Pitt's body flew back in the movie Snatch. I want to hit this position, this camera movement. Like, the directors that have a clear vision, you'll do just about anything to make their vision come to life. It's the directors that don't really have a vision that you're like, all right, let's just get it, move on.
Yeah, they're like steering the ship, but they don't know what's the end port, right? They hope they will see it once they made it, right?
Exactly.
That's interesting.
Exactly.
What do you enjoy doing more? Stunts yourself, or doing stunt? Sorry, doing stunt coordination and making fight choreography and making those scenes from scratches. Like we said in the beginning, you are in some projects where you are second unit director, right?
Yes. So at the end of the day, the perfect world, like everything that you do in entertainment is storytelling. We're all trying to tell a story. On the stunt side, you're telling it through a more physical nature. The higher up your job goes, the more tools you have at your disposal to tell that story. As a stunt performer, you can only tell the story through your movements. So, I can tell the story of like, I'm the hero, I'm going to stand up big and tall, or, I'm kind of afraid and I don't really want to fight, but I'm going to do whatever I have to do to protect myself. So it's a fun, like, storytelling through physical acting experience. But then you get into fight coordinating, where you're not only doing your own choreography, but you're creating this person's choreography as well. And you're like, okay, well, this character would move this way, this character would move this way. We want to have these specific beats happen. So you're kind of building it that way. Then when you get into, the second unit directing of it all, you also have the ability to put the camera where you want to tell the story that you are also telling through the choreography and everything like that. So there's just a lot more added layers, which is more work, but at the end of the day, it gives you much more ability to tell the story that you want to tell. And I'm very excited by that. I still love hitting the ground. I still love the physical side of stunt performing, but I'm definitely more passionate at this point in time on the directing side, because I feel like I'm able to direct the action in front of the camera, what the camera is doing, and ultimately whatever's in my head, I can make it appear on the screen and share my visions with everybody that watches the film or TV show.
I get that perfect shot from your stunts.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And did you watch maybe Hawkeye?
Bits and pieces. Most I try to watch as much action as I can. There's no film school for action cinematography. There's a billion different, film schools for acting or for traditional directing, but they're so focused on how to light a dialogue scene or how to shoot an establishing scene. They don't really get into, the way to shoot action pieces and everything like that. So for most stunt people who eventually want to become action directors, our film school is watching as many fight scenes, as many action sequences as possible, and studying from that. So I do watch every single show that comes out, at least bits and pieces, to see what the action looks like. So I did watch Hawkeye. I really like the stunt team that worked on Hawkeye. Some insanely talented people, and there's a lot of creativity there. It was just, again, that's the transition into MCU Marvel as opposed to Marvel Netflix. So you're getting a very different level of action.
Oh yeah, but among all TV series, and you worked on most of all of them so far, if not everyone, including Loki, Miss Marvel, not Hawkeye, right? But in Hawkeye, it's the series that most resembles what Netflix did with its series, and I wanted to know what you think about action sequences and Vincent's portrayal of Kingpin.
Well, Vincent is Vincent. He is a legend. He is an absolute master. And I mean, he's always 110%. He's just absolutely perfect as that character. I think he's absolutely perfect as every character he's ever played.
Since Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, absolutely. He was incredible then. He's just always been a phenomenal actor. They changed the character. Yeah, obviously there's a very different vibe, a very different energy to Kingpin. But the way Vincent played it, I accept it. I think he just brings so much to that character. I think they could throw any challenge at him and he would absolutely make it work. So I think he absolutely crushed it. I agree. The only show that I think could ever compete with Daredevil action wise is Hawkeye. It was definitely the stunt team out of this world. So talented. I would love to see that stunt team do that show, but with the team that we had on Daredevil, with the showrunners, with the just the backing that we had, because when we did Daredevil, we had the full support from everybody. If we were like, if the script said an action, an epic action sequence takes place, we'd say, okay, here's our idea. This will take 3 days to shoot. And they would come back and say, well, we were only planning on 1 day. But we'll give you 2 more. We want that scene. they would support everything. Most TV shows do not give you that. Most TV shows, they say, we want an epic fight scene. You go, cool, here you go. And they go, ooh, that's too big. We only have one day to shoot it. Cut it in half. So then you cut it in half. And then they spend the first half of the day in some other scene. And then they get to you and they're like, hey, we were supposed to have a full day for the scene, but now you have 3 hours. So just do what you can. Just, so I think considering the obstacles that they faced and considering what they were working with, the Hawkeye team just blew it out of the park. They absolutely rocked it. I would just like to see them unhandcuffed and see what they could do then, because that show, that team, those characters, they have all the potential to be Daredevil level or beyond. And now that Born Again is taking a very different path, I am very eager to see which show becomes raises the bar and becomes the new show to beat. It was Daredevil for the longest time.
I thought it will be Loki, but no, still not.
Well, so Loki, I think the magic of Loki was it really wasn't an action film, or action action series. I love what they did. Tom Hiddleston's just another one of those actors that, like, he's incredible. He's perfect. Him, Sophia did amazing. Everybody on the show did really, really just great work. It's just that show is not about the action, whereas, you look at Daredevil, you look at Hawkeye, you look at some of those shows, and the action is a character. The action is like a very integral part of the story. Loki would have been just as good if there wasn't a single piece of action on the whole thing, right? You love the characters, you love the story, you love everything about it. So it definitely didn't take the trophy as far as being the new action show, but I mean, it's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, mine as well. But I thought about shows in general because Daredevil is the best show on between all superhero movies, in my opinion. And with across the Spider-Verse, white hot at the moment, and with so many epic action sequences in that movie, are there some action scenes you remember growing up or from recent years in animated movies, anime, or even comic books that you would like to bring to life in live action movie?
Well, it's funny. To me, one of my favorite concepts, taking cartoon action, taking anime action, and translating it to live action has always been one of my favorite challenges. Brad Allen, who was the second unit director of Kick-Ass, of Scott Pilgrim versus the World, of Shang-Chi, so many just incredible, just bar-raising films. He was a huge anime fan, and he would take different camera angles, different camera movements, different things from anime and translate that into live action. A lot of people have tried, but it normally ends up looking weak. Just it doesn't work. He found a way to make it work, and I always wanted to do what he did and find ways to make it work. There isn't a specific, I mean, like I love like Demon Slayer was like my favorite little anime as of recently, and it absolutely would, but it's not. I wouldn't necessarily want to make a Demon Slayer live action film, but I love the idea of taking shots and sequences from Demon Slayer and translating them into live action, and just certain tricks. Like I love the way anime can freeze time. Like when you're watching most fight scenes, it's going at a very monotonous pace. You're going bop, 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 and it starts to feel like a dance. And at the end of the day, we know what we're watching is a dance. The choreography of it all is two bodies moving, and it's choreographed so nobody actually gets hurt throughout it. So it feels like a dance. In anime, you'll be in the middle of a fight, you go bop, 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 boom, and then you just see like a punch come in super slow motion. Even the contact, it happens like really slow, and it gives you these great moments where you push in on the actor's face, or in anime on the cartoon's face, on the character's face, and you are feeling what they're feeling. Because like when you're super wide, when you just see two little bodies fighting on the screen, you don't know what they're thinking. You don't see their facial reactions. And in a fight, there's so much that happens in a split second that you can't really parlay. You can't really show that in regular speed. But if you can slow it down, so you see as a punch is coming, you're watching the punch, but you're actually watching what the other hand is doing too, and you might see a weakness. So even as you're taking this punch, you know what you're countering with for the next move. And anime just always has a really, really cool way to do that. So taking like little things like that, and traditionally when you're shooting any scene, everyone's taught, you're over the shoulder, and they started shooting that way just because it's the easiest way to, see what the actor's seeing. You want to be, roughly eye level, because that's, how you can convey emotion. It feels like you're talking to the person. You wouldn't be talking to somebody while like on your knees looking up at them, or you wouldn't talk to somebody while you were standing on a table looking down at them. You want to be at eye level to feel what they're feeling. However, in a fight sequence, you don't necessarily have to always stay at that eye level. Anime is almost always like hip level. You're low looking up, which makes characters look bigger and stronger. It makes movements seem more exaggerated and bigger than they actually are. So to me, taking elements of anime and turning them into live action can enhance live action in a really cool way if you do it the right way.
Yeah, David did something similar in Bullet Train, right? Basically.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have a very similar mindset to David and Chad. Obviously they're light years ahead of me, because they've been doing this much longer than I have, and they taught me years and years ago, and they've only gotten better. So I respect everything about them. But I think because they guided me so much early on in my career, I've grown to think in a very similar way to them. I think that everything that they have created, from the John Wick universe to Bullet Train to Deadpool to Hobbs and Shaw, that is the absolute goal in the action world. They're doing what every one of us wants to do, and they are showing action at a much higher level than the audience has ever seen it before.
There are no rules but one. Drink Jägermeister at minus 18 degrees Celsius.
I wanted to ask you, just I was thinking when we were talking about Hawkeye and anime, there's a much variety there, and you've been very varied through your career. You've done recently Kung Fu Vampires, cowboys, apes, superheroes, but are there stuff that you are still would like to do? Is there an aerial sequence that you would like to do? Is there scene with wild animals that you would like to choreograph, or something like that?
It's TMNT, man.
That you would think like, I would like to do that one day.
Well, to be honest, right now I am the most excited about shooting the most grounded and basic styles of action. I've spent so many years in the superhero world where we are flying, and there's you need wires for everything. You got people doing all this stuff in the air and all of this, and it's like all of your energy is going into the fantasy world of, you know, what birds would do in a fight. I am really, really excited about shooting two people in a bar fight, you know, or you know, just like, I mean, to me, what Sam Hargrave just did on Extraction, you know, like it's amazing. You know, you are in it with the character. It's again, it's another character that you can relate to, you know, from Rake in Extraction to John Wick. Like, obviously they're doing things that probably aren't that possible. I don't think any one person can take out an entire army, let alone multiple armies. But every moment of it, you can believe, because you can do any one move that John Wick or Rake does. You can't relate to, you know, superheroes flying through the air and blasting lasers out of their eyes. Like, all the shows are fun, you know. There's nothing that's
cool.
you know, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's nothing boring about working on a superhero show where people are getting ratcheted through the air, bodies are flying, and all that kind of stuff. But creatively, I really, really want to get more into storytelling for real stories, like for something that the audience can feel. I really want to find my Rocky, my Raid Redemption. Like, I want to find like what I love about Raid Redemption, it is a very quickly told story as far as the lead up to the action. I mean, Raid Redemption is a 90-minute film that has probably 79 minutes of action and like 11
Probably, yeah.
minutes of story, like, kind of lead in. Um, but there's still a story. You still feel that character. I mean, like, as simple as him waking up and seeing his wife with her pregnant belly next to him, you immediately love him. Like, you're like, okay, that is a husband and a soon to be father. He is a good man. So now when he gets into all of this action, you are rooting for him. You care about him. I love that. And I love the style of action where he is one person against many, many, many people, and he most likely will not live. You know, same as Rocky. He gets into the ring and you're like, oh, this guy's gonna lose. Like, he doesn't step in that ring with you going, oh yeah, he's the hero. He's definitely gonna win. No, like, every time he steps in the ring, you're like, oh, I hope he does. I don't think he can, but I hope he wins. Like, I want to find my underdog story. I want to find something that not only has amazing action on the screen, but I want for people to watch it and leave with hope. I want people to leave more uplifted and happier and more charged up than when they walked in the theater, you know?
And tell me this, in Winter Soldier, you squared off with George St-Pierre. Is that a bragging right in the bar?
Oh, I mean, literally meeting GSP is a bragging right. Working with him was amazing. It was incredible. It's so funny because that fight, if you remember, the fight starts off with him running and drop kicking Cap in the back. So Cap's not even looking. So our first day of rehearsals, I just remember I have to walk with my face this way, and one of the best fighters in the entire world is going to run up behind me and kick me in the spine. I'm like, I might not walk home after this. Like, yeah, this is going to be really crazy. But GSP had more control on his techniques than almost any stunt person I've ever worked with. The guy was legendary. I mean, he's literally one of the best fighters of all time, but he has such control that he would throw a really gnarly, super strong kick, and it would feel like this, because he would literally make the power stop just before it hit me, and he would just tap those moves. He was amazing, and one of the nicest human beings on the planet.
Yeah. So he was impressed by your performance.
Well, I think he was impressed with the team, and I mean, I think we may be part of the inspiration behind. Like, you've definitely seen since leaving the octagon, he's gotten really into like acrobatics and stuff, and he's now throwing front flips and back flips and all kinds of stuff. And I think we were part of that inspiration. So
He's going extreme. Tell me, when you are in those masks, in those superhero universe, do you ever wish to take down that mask, and to show your face, to maybe try as an actor?
In a really weird way, I've never been a stunt double and wanted that recognition. There are a lot of stunt people who are like, I want to act too and everything like that. If like, our career is built on living in the shadows. So that's always been my mentality. Like, there's never been any wanting to be the guy in front of the camera instead. Now that I'm doing more on the directing, coordinating side, I do toy with the idea of playing a character, but it mostly just as a new experience. Like, I feel like I did everything that I wanted to do as a stunt double and as a stunt performer. I won 2 Warrior Cup. The Warrior Cup was in martial arts. I won 2 of the Taurus Stunt Awards, which is like, that's our Oscar. That is the world's award for stunt performance. And I kind of did everything I wanted to do as a stunt performer. As a stunt coordinator, I've continued to build my resume. There's still certain things that I want to do as a stunt coordinator. There's a lot of things that I want to do as a director and as a second unit director. But just one of the avenues that I really haven't ventured down is the acting avenue. So I think it's one of those things that I'm definitely open to opportunities. Every once in a while I get a phone call or an email where someone's like, "Hey, I'd really like you to play, a character in this." And if I find the right spot, I would absolutely jump in and try it out, see how I do.
Yeah, maybe the next gig is motion capture for one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That would be cool. I do a lot of motion capture as well. Motion capture is very cool because you can be everything, and like, there's no limitations. With live action, at some level, gravity will take effect, and there's certain things that just cannot physically be done. But again, that marriage between live action and VFX, whether it's through motion capture, or now they've got LED walls and all of these new toys, basically, with all of those tools at your disposal, there's no limitations. Anything you can dream up, you can literally make it happen.
Oh yeah, and especially when you have someone brilliant as Andy Serkis in that. Guy's brutal.
Yeah. Andy Serkis he's just, again, he's another one of those masters. Like, I am so incredibly lucky because I've just gotten to work with so many people that I respect, wholeheartedly.
Oh, yeah.
And seeing that man do what he does was insanely inspirational.
Oh yeah. And with all the people you work with one of your idols, Jackie Chan, in The Spy Next Door. So how you felt finally meeting Jackie eye to eye?
So meeting Jackie was the only time that I've ever been fully starstruck. He came over and he introduced himself to me. He said, "Hi, I'm Jackie." And I go, and I shook his hand, and no words came out of my mouth. And I literally followed him around like a puppy dog until he walked into another room. And then I finally gathered the courage to introduce myself. But yeah, that was, that was one of the first big events in my stunt career. Earlier I mentioned Bob Brown, and that, like, any step up in life, you need somebody who believes in you. And Bob Brown was one of the first people who really believed in me. He called me up and offered me a spot on this film and was like, hey, I think you'd be a really great double for Lucas Till. And I want to fly you out here to fight Jackie. When he first said Jackie, like he said it in a way that I thought I should know who he was talking about, but I didn't make the immediate correlation to Jackie Chan. I was like, okay, well, Bob Brown is on Brand X, and Brand X is a massive stunt team, and maybe Jackie's like one of the top guys on Brand X that I should know. Yeah, so I like went on the website looking at all the people on Brand X to see if there was a Jackie that I would be fighting, and it literally wasn't until I started walking into the house that we were filming in New Mexico, and I saw a whole bunch of guys walking wearing Jackie Chan, his action team, the logo on their backs. And I saw that, I was like, Jackie Chan, wait. And then it was just before I walked in the door that I realized I was about to fight Jackie Chan.
Yeah, talk about relatability with the actor, because in his famous fight scenes, he could make a remote controller look like a deadly weapon.
Yeah, and Daredevil also used all the objects on his disposal as weapons as well.
Yeah. Ironically, there's a lot of Jackie Chan isms to Daredevil, and it plays very differently because with Jackie Chan it was so desperate, like he's grabbing for anything nearby and everything like that, whereas with Daredevil, his sonar sense, he knows everything that's around him, and it would just give you that same feel because he would grab it without looking. He knew that there were keys right here. He wouldn't have to look for things. He would just be mid-fight and grab something and go. So he was still using his environment, but in a very different way. But yeah, I absolutely saw that translation of Jackie Chan type movements and Jackie Chan's environmental defense in Daredevil's choreography.
And before we wrap up, we have a little tradition where we translate quote from our Montenegrin language to English, and I have chosen a quote from our actor, and he tried himself in Hollywood as well, Rade Šerbedžija, and he said, "Vaše bore znače da ste se smejali, vaša sjeda kosa pokazuje da ste brinuli, a vaši ožiljci da ste živjeli." And in English it would be, "Your wrinkles mean you laughed, your gray hair means you cared, and your scars mean you lived." And I guess you have a lot of scars from the set. Yes, you really lived.
Absolutely do. I've got quite a few scars, and I absolutely love that quote. There was I don't even remember what movie it was, but there was a movie where they were in a football huddle, and somebody basically just said, scars are just tattoos with better stories or something like that, where it was just your scars tell your stories of your life and everything like that. And I know we're kind of out of time, but one of the best experiences of my life, I did a commercial for Isopure, and Isopure is just like a protein company. And I did a commercial for them, and they asked me to jump through glass shirtless. And I told them I would, but told them it would cost a good amount. And then I got there on the day, and they were like, "Hey, can you dive through the glass and then roll?" And I just remember having, yeah.
Wow.
And I told them, I'm like, just so you know, this number is what you would have to pay to get somebody to dive through glass, because there's a very good chance that you get cut, and that number goes up if you're diving through glass shirtless, because it's a much bigger risk that you get cut.
Oh, yeah.
If I do a roll in broken glass, there's no question I'm going to come up bleeding. And they're like, "Okay, so you don't want to do it?" I'm like, "No, I mean, I'll do it, but it's going to cost this much money." And they said, "Go for it." And I did it, and I came up, and I was bleeding a good bit. And I've got quite a few scars on my back from doing it.
And a great story.
Right. Well, it's what I love about it is there will be a day where my son and daughter are going to college, or when my son and daughter, see the scars on my back, and I can actually say, well, these scars are actually what helped put you through college. Like I mean, in a weird way, those scars show what I did to, what I sacrificed in order to grow in my career and to achieve the things that I've achieved in my life. And in a really weird way, like I'm super, super proud of every scar on my body.
Yeah, like Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon when he is with, I don't remember the actors, but they are exchanging their scar stories.
Yeah, they're talking about, this one was from this, and you got shot here, got stabbed here. Yeah, 100%. I think most stunt people will have a smile on their face when they're talking about every scar on their body, because they usually come with pretty good stories.
Oh yeah,
Absolute madness. But that's the part of the job, right?
True story.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for joining us. This is probably the most enjoyable talk, and we had many on this podcast that I had so far.
Amazing. Well, thank you. I love it.
Okay.
We stay genuine, uncensored, and unscripted, and we always will, as we have to order our usual. Share us and subscribe us, and stay tuned until the next Wednesday. Ikuzo!